Episode 6 of the Queen's Gambit. Here we see Beth taking on Benny and two of his friends. They're playing in Benny's place and they're playing speed chess. So let's check out a couple of these positions. First up, it is white to move here and win. Black's king is not safe. Even though black has 3 pawns in front of his king, he is missing a bishop, normally on this square, because if there was a bishop on g7, then this queen would not be allowed on h6. Pause the video. Can you find a brilliant move for white, which was played in the episode, leading to checkmate in 3 moves? I'll give you 5 seconds. The move is knight h5 or knight f5, same thing. The point is, if black does nothing, then queen g7 will be checkmate. In the episode, we see Benny take the knight, and now it's time to swing the rook over. Rook g3 check. The king can only go in the corner, and then queen g7 check, as played in the episode by Beth. And here we see Beth beating all 3 players all the time in speed chess, which contrasts to what we saw before in the previous episode, where Benny kept beating Beth and winning $5. But here, Beth was actually playing for $10 per game and beat them all the time. Here is another blitz game played between Beth and Benny, and this is a very famous game. Let's take it from this position. This is between Paul Morphy and Isouard, back in Paris, 1858. Here it is white to move. Black's king is still in the middle. Black has not got his bishop and rook out. At the moment, the queens attack each other. But here, Beth, or Paul Morphy, unleashes a winning combination. Checkmate in 2 moves. So once again, I'm very impressed that they got a very famous game and put it in a show. Pause the video to have a go. I'll give you 5 seconds. It would be really nice if rook d8 was possible. This is a very similar checkmate that we saw in the first episode, where there's a bishop on g5, there's a rook on d1. This was when Beth checkmated the high school chess teacher, Mr. Gans. Here, white to move, time to sacrifice your queen. Queen to b8 check, the king cannot move, so the knight takes it, vacating the d file, and then rook d8 is mate. You can't take the rook because of the bishop, and you can't come forward because of the bishop. Here is an endgame puzzle posed by one of Benny's friends when they came over for Blitz, for speed chess. It is white to move and checkmate in 3. Now, a lot of chess players like these kind of puzzles because they require an unusual motif, an unusual idea. So let's check out this endgame now. White to move, checkmate in 3. First thing to notice is the king is boxed in. There's a bishop here, deliberately, so then the king cannot go into the corner, or else it might not be checkmate in 3. Another thing to notice is white is completely winning because white has 2 extra knights. But it's because it is mate in 3 that it is a very nice sequence of moves. So pause the video. Can you see the first move? I'll give you 5 seconds. The first move is king d7. At the moment, the king cannot go here, to e5, to the sides. It can only go to 1 square on g7. So if the king moves, first thing I want to show is if bishop g7, then you're just boxing your own king in. Now time to bring the knight in. And it doesn't matter where the bishop goes, we're going to play the same move. So if we put the bishop here, knight e8 check, that's the point. The knight checks the king, but it guards the g7 square. And here the king cannot move anywhere, so that is really nice. The difficult one to see is if the king moves. Now we still move the knight to d6, because it's got 2 options, knight e8 checkmate or knight takes f5 checkmate. And knight takes f5, that was the one I did not see. Now here the king can move to h6 or to f8. If it goes to f8, then we actually bring the other knight in, which is really nice. checking the king, guarding this square, and notice this protects this bishop. And the other option is if you go king h6, now you play knight takes pawn, checkmate. Every square is guarded. g7 is guarded by the knight. Both green squares are guarded by the bishop, and the king cannot go back to h7 because of the other knight on g5. So a really nice study-like checkmate. It is Paris, 1967. Just want to show you some of the incredible scenes in the game between Beth Harmon and Vasily Borgov. This is the demonstration board. We see a Najdorf, an open Sicilian Najdorf. Then we see this middle game, and this is taken from an actual game between Megaranto and Dominguez. Then we get this position. Black's pieces are all superior to white's pieces. Black has two bishops slicing the board. Bishop is putting pressure on f4. This bishop controls so many light squares. Black's queen is more active than white's queen. Black's queen is at the moment pinning this knight to the king, so then white cannot take the knight. And also, this rook is better than this. This rook is controlling lots of squares on the third rank, putting pressure on h3. Here, Beth played queen d4, offering a trade of queens. This tends to be a good strategy when you know one of your pieces is worse than your opponent's, so you offer a trade. Here, the scene cuts and then we jump straight to an endgame. But, for example, some moves like this could have happened. Black can take. The queens come off, and here, black is much better. Yes, white has an outside pass pawn, but this pawn isn't moving anywhere anytime soon. This bishop is controlling the queening square, and both of black's pieces, both of black's minor pieces are better than both of white's. Also, at the moment, black has 4 against 2 on the king side. This is known as a kingside majority. Now we're going to jump straight to the final scene. The final moment of this game. Here we see Borgov making the final move against Beth. Let's quickly check out the final moments now. When you look at this position, white is completely lost because white is down a queen. Also throughout this game, Beth has been drunk, drinking lots of water during the game, so she hasn't played her best game. In the episode, we see Beth moving. We see Beth swinging the rook over, and this move does have a point, because if it's white's move again, then it will be checkmate. But the problem is, it is black's move. Borgov looks up to Beth, which is one funny thing about this show. There's just so much. I would say there's a bit too much eye contact. Here, checkmate in one move. Queen h4, it's game over. The king has nowhere to go. All squares covered. g6 is covered by the pawn or the bishop. The queen cannot be taken due to the rook, and this king cannot go anywhere. Blocked in by the bishop, it cannot go back, cannot go forward because of the queen, to the side or back, or due to the queen.